Good morning. The time is now 11 a.m. and the school board is reconvening from our recess from last night. We are going to go into a very quick closed session. There was one agenda item we did not get to that will be very short, and then we'll be right back out of that. So pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551074 and 551076, security devices or security audits, the board will consider and discuss Bexar County Sheriff's Office MOU. The time is now 11:01, and we are going to go into a brief closed session. Thank you. The time is now 11:06, and the board will reconvene in open session. No final decision or vote was taken while the board was in closed session. I'm going to go back and do a quick roll call on a reconvene, just so we have a record of who is back now this morning. So there, if you can mark your attendance. Okay, we have 6 members present. Mr. Macias had another commitment, and he's going to try to make it, and if he is able to make it, we'll mark him present when he arrives. Hold on. There we go. Okay, now we are going to move to agenda item 7E to finish out that paragraph from last night. And I'll make the motion to approve a memorandum of understanding with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office regarding access to the Bexar County Network and the Bexar County Regional Information Sharing Hub. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Ryan and a second by Ms. Lee. We'll give you credit for that one today, even though you all tied. Okay, do we have any discussion on this? All right, we'll proceed to vote. All right, motion passes 6-0. Now we're going to go back up to the top of the agenda. Item 4, consideration of consent items. Do I have items board members wish to pull from consent? Dr. Fields, there were none we were pulling, right? I just want to make sure. There's no, everything on consent's still good, right? Okay, I was going to, hold on, I gotta find the number. Where's Upward Bound? Okay, I was gonna pull L just for a couple of questions because we just got those MOUs yesterday. Are there any other items board members wish to pull from consent? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve all consent items with the exception of item L.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Canoyer, a second by Ms. Stanford for letters A through N minus the letter L. Any no discussion because it's consent. Okay, we can proceed to vote. Okay, consent agenda passes 6-0. We will go back to item L, which was the MOU with St. Mary's University and Judson ISD for the Upward Bound program. I had a couple questions on the MOU and some of the things that they have access to. I don't think I was on the board when this was originally passed. There is stuff about them having access to full access to Skyward, full access to all of our students' grades, unlimited use of copy machines, access to all students' records. Can you explain, I guess, what this program is and why they would need access to kind of everything in the district?
Yes, ma'am. It's not for the original contract. We're already in that. But in terms of why they need access, this is a college preparatory initiative funded by the Department of Education that we work with St. Mary's University. And just to be clear, what we're asking for today is the ability to amend this contract that we've already signed to allow St. Mary's and Upward Bound to pay for transportation. Currently, we transport our students to St. Mary's University, and they have gotten approved through the Department of Education a grant that now allows them to pay for the transportation. So they're just wanting to amend the MOU to show that they're paying for the transportation. In terms of what the program does, is it's again, college preparatory program with St. Mary's and Upward Bound. And they have academic advisors that work with us. They talk about academic year courses, summer academic components, bridge components to college, cultural enrichment activities. And in there has been this list of things that they can have access to work with the students that are a part of that program.
I think the original agreement said they would were funded for 63 students, and we had, and I don't, Dr. Toppin is here, so I don't know who this falls under, but have we had high participation in this?
Enough to where Dr. Gosh felt like we needed to come back and make this amendment, and start getting compensated for the amount of students that we transport down.
Okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, those are the only questions, and it's assuming because they're under Department of Education, they're already doing all the FERPA things that are
Correct.
already, because
Exactly.
they're part of Department of Education. Oh, I see Ms. Garcia nodding. So, okay, it was a lot of access, so I'm like, I just wanted to make sure what kind of the rules that they were under with this program. Any other questions from any other board members? Okay, seeing none, since I pulled it, I'll make the motion. I move that we approve the amendment of the MOU by St. Mary's University and Judson ISD for the Upward Bound program.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Ryan, a second by Ms. Stanford, and I will proceed us over to vote. Okay, motion passes 6-0. All right, we will move on to discussion and consideration of action items. Hold on, let me flip to that. I think the board's familiar with this already, but for the public, there was discussion at our strategic planning with our consultant to do some efficiencies with our board meetings, hopefully. And what some other districts do is, most of us are here by 5 o'clock already for the board anyway, and we're usually gathering and preparing to start our closed session at 5 o'clock, so we can, especially if we have to have legal counsel that we're paying by the minute, and other people, to start our closed session and get done, if we can get it all done ahead of time, so we're not doing that at the end of the night. But by doing that, our governance policy said you had to sign in before the start of the meeting. Well, now the meeting will technically start at 5. And we didn't want citizens to have to sign in by 5 because we still have people on contract, like high school teachers and everything else. So this is an amendment to our governance handbook that says you will have up until the beginning of the open session in order to sign in, and that should leave sufficient time for everyone to sign in. And public comment just has to be before we take action on things, and we don't take action in closed session. So that's what the change to this is, to make sure that public comment is still fully allowed, and that our change wasn't going to restrict that in any way. So any questions or discussion from the board on that one?
I'd only add this, that our policy BED, because you guys asked me to go back and look into it, BED states, see local procedure. Our local procedure is the Good Governance Handbook. So in the Good Governance Handbook, it will state for regular board meetings, closed sessions will begin at 5 p.m. Community members wishing to speak should fill out the public address form prior to the start of the open session. And the open session will commence after the closed session. So now we're in alignment with what our current policy says, because we're making this change to the good governance.
And also, should it be a really extended closed session, we would stop and come back in and start our open session at some, make you sit here forever while we're.
Correct. And this would apply to our regular board meetings, is when we will change that on the schedule. And so starting in, I think, July.
Yes, ma'am.
We will, those agendas will then be posted to start at 5 p.m. and start with a closed session.
On Thursday, it'll just be the same way we.
Correct. This Thursday will still be the same way. We already posted that agenda and start time, so we won't be changing this Thursday. This will go into effect in the July regular meeting, which just got moved to July 3rd, or no? Yes, we just approved that. I'm sorry. It was
31st.
on consent. It's now July 31st. Okay, any other discussion before we, Laura, you go ahead, Laura.
Just checking to see if, are we just approving page 1 change, or we're approving everything as it is with the change?
It would be, we've already approved the Good Governance Handbook, so this would be the amendment, the change to it on page number 10.
Yes, just the red line, which is for the addition of the language or the changing of the language in paragraph 3A1 to now read, for regular board meetings, closed session will begin at 5 p.m. and community members wishing to speak must fill out the public address form prior to the start of open session.
Yes.
Open session will commence immediately after closed session.
Correct.
That is what we'll be voting on, that red language.
So it's an amendment.
Correct.
But we would still
Amendment.
need a new signature sheet to show the update.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, and then just another quick question. I think it's on page 1, under the duties of the president. I didn't see speak to the media on behalf of the board. Is that somewhere
in
else?
here.
I don't even have that page printed. Oh,
I just noticed it wasn't there. Is it
Under
somewhere else?
duties, I know it speaks it later on in the Good Governance Handbook where it says the only person who can speak to the media on behalf of the board is the board president.
Right, and just to clarify for the new board members, we can still speak to the media, but only on our behalf and our districts, our constituents.
It's on page 16.
Page 16, okay, I just
Thank you.
noticed it was missing here. So, other than that, we're all equal, by the way. We're all equal members with equal vote. No one has more importance over another, so.
yes, and everybody knows that. And they just went through training. Okay, you're good. Wait, I'm sorry, what? It's on a different, media is addressed on a different
Yeah.
page of the Good Governance
Yeah,
Handbook.
communication with media is a separate item.
Yes. Okay. If no other discussion,
I move that we approve the amendment to the Good Governance Handbook.
okay, I have a motion by Ms. Canoyer, a second by Ms. Stanford, and we will proceed to vote. And motion passes 6-0. Okay, and hello, Mr. Macias. For the record, we'll note, Mr. Macias was able to join us at 11:18. I will proceed, and then I think he can, oops, there we go, okay. We are moving on to agenda item 5B, discussion and possible action to retain the current middle school programming through the 25-26 school year. This was put on by a number of board members to the agenda. Did you want to go through your slides, or we just want to discuss?
I think
Dr.
it's
Fields?
important for us to go through.
The slides?
Basically,
Okay.
yes, ma'am. And if I can have Dr. Saunders and Dr. Toppin move their way to the podium. We were asked in this agenda item to come back and talk about the middle school course catalog and some of the changes that were being recommended by our Curriculum and Instruction Department. We have some of the questions that were presented by the board members on this agenda item. I asked Dr. Saunders to give kind of a lead-in, or Dr. Toppin to give a lead-in to where we are right now, and then they can go briefly through the slides, and we can open up for any questions that we may have. So,
And just some background, I think, on why board members felt the need to add this, is this is a pretty significant curriculum change,
I
a pretty
think they-
significant initiative, because it now involves, for, the public that doesn't know,
they made some
double
changes.
blocking.
They're making some recommended changes.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah.
then I'm going to pause.
Thank you
Go
so
ahead,
much.
please.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? It's just like I've seen y'all, just like yesterday, right? So definitely wanted to come to the board because this is something that we have been working on for pretty much a year. I think it was last year, around about May of last year, in the May board meeting, Mr. Macias brought up, and I think also Ms. Stanford brought up some concerns about what's going on with the middle school and the performances of our students in the middle school levels. And so one of the things they asked about is that we discuss some of the interventions that we have put in place in order to address those concerns in middle school, and to see, what are we doing, what do we have not doing. And so as a result of that, we started this long process of going back and looking at our data and looking at where we were needing to provide additional support to all students. In the midst of all of that, the state has come back in with what we call the multi-tiered student support, and that we're no longer looking at just RTI. RTI is now an umbrella, under the umbrella of MTSS, multi-tiered student support. Return to intervention is what we have been practicing as a state. And so the state is now saying that multi-tiered student support is now looking at all kids and not just the kids that are struggling academically. We're looking at all students, because if you look at our accountability, the accountability states that all students must grow within a year of instruction, and all means all. That means every kid at the meets level, at the master's level, at the approaches level, not just the students that fell into the level of did not meets. And so one of the things that is also part of our accountability is that when a student is at the master's level when they're in 5th grade, but then they go into 6th grade and they take a test that's connected to the previous grade year, which is in this case, I'm going to use math. If you had mastery at math in the 5th grade, and then you take the Math STAR test in 6th grade, and you score at the meets, you get 0 points as a district for that child. So anytime a child moves backwards in performance, then it impacts the accountability not only of the campus, but also of the district. The other thing is that we have noticed that just focusing, because of the accountability changes, the state says that every kid must grow. Just focusing on the students that is at the did not meet is not where we need to be. So the state is saying that now we're focusing on multi-tiered all students, and whether it's academics, behavior, or social emotional support, it's whatever any student needs. We need to meet them where they are to get them to where we need them to be. And so what we have noticed is that not only are we worried about our kids that are at the did not meets, the kids that are at approaches are still below grade level. That means that where they scored on STAR is basically giving us the message. If you read the documentation from TEA, it says if a child scores at the approaches level, they're still not on level to be successful in that grade or the grade that's coming behind it. If you're at the meets, you're passing at the grade level, and if you're masters, you are beyond the grade level. So the difference and the thing that started this whole conversation when we started talking about interventions and what we're doing at the middle school level, because for the last 3 years, ever since COVID, I would be honest with you, ever since COVID, we have seen a very disturbing trend from 5th to 6th, from 6th to 7th, and really at 7th grade where we're seeing that kids are not performing on level consistently at any of the 4 levels. And so what we have done is started to look about, okay, where are we as a district? Where do we get our most points as a district for accountability? We do not get the most of our points as a district for how many kids pass STAR. We get our points for how many kids grow in a year. So how many kids move from did not meets to approaches, from approaches to meets, from meets to master. That's where as a district we get our points from growth. So again, the state is saying you cannot just focus on the did not meets. You cannot just focus on the kids that are in the did not meets and at the meets level or at the approaches level. You have to focus on all kids, even kids that are at the mastery level, because if the kids at the mastery level are not continuing to grow, they're not getting ready for post-secondary. And we're seeing this bottleneck when they get to the high school in English 1 STAR, English 2 STAR, and Algebra 1 STAR, and SAT, ACT, advanced placement testing. These are our top performing kids that are not managing getting the maximum amount of points for them to be successful according to the state at the post-secondary level. So what do we decide to do? I heard Ms. Stanford and Mr. Macias and Ms. Canoria really big last summer is like, we got to do something different because we can't keep doing the same thing we've always done and expect different results. So one of the things that we came out with is like, we're going to upend the cart and look at not only a one-step approach for just students, we also got to look at the teachers, because the other side of this is what's going on in Tier 1 instruction. Tier 1 is what is happening in each classroom every single day when a teacher's in a room for 45 minutes, 47 minutes with that student. What are we doing in Tier 1 that's impacting the overall performance and not getting our kids to the level of success that we need them to be successful beyond that grade level? And so one of the things we did is that when we were talking and doing a lot of research with PLC, a lot of research with TEA, talking to TEA, and they are saying, we're not going to tell you what that multi-tiered support has to look like. We're saying that it has to be part of your school system. You have to show it in some kind of way, whether it's in the RTI, and the board was very generous last year in the fall of this school year when they decided to talk about increasing the number of response to intervention teachers that we had at the middle school level so we can provide a reading and a math RTI teacher, response to intervention teacher, at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Prior to that, we usually typically only had one teacher at each grade level, which meant the school would have to decide, are they going to focus on reading, or are they going to focus on math, or are they going to split that teacher to teach both? So when they did that, that increased the number of teachers that we had at each grade level. You had 2 teachers that were teaching reading, language arts. You had 2 teachers that were teaching math, and then you had an RTI teacher for math and an RTI teacher for reading. That gave you a total of 3 teachers for each one of those subjects at each grade level. This is how the schedule looked like. So what you see is that the RTI teacher for reading, the RTI teacher for math, only basically had about 6 sections that they could service all the kids in the school that failed STAR only. That's under the old model. So with the MTSS model, it says we just can't service the students that fail STAR. We have to service all kids in the area of their academic need. And so this is what we've had so far in our district, probably for the last, I want to say 15, 16, 20 years. Yes, ma'am.
When we made that change and increased the RTI teachers, how long have we now had that in place for?
Just
about-
this year.
Have we seen any results?
We're waiting for final results from STAR. At some places, we are seeing some really significant growth in some places, but again, we're waiting for final numbers, which we'll be sharing with the board, I believe, in August.
We will be. I would say, Ms. Stanford, we're not seeing the growth that we need to see.
Yeah.
That's why we're bringing this proposed change, but I really want to get to.
I'm getting there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask just
Got
one
to
question?
paint the picture.
Can we go back one? Can I ask one question on that one? So in those 6 RTI reading sections with 1 teacher in 6th grade, about how many students then would be in each of those class periods? So that one RTI teacher was sitting with what? 10, 12 kids?
15 to 18, 15 to 20. Some of us, we pushed it over because we had more students that needed servicing than we had capabilities, I can't go backwards.
And
Capabilities to service. So it's anywhere from 15 to 20 to 25 kids in an RTI class. So a teacher teaching RTI, 1 teacher would possibly be able to service, if you multiply that by 6, about 120 kids in a year's time. When we had
Okay.
more than that
And
just in the
every-
did not meet.
Every student who failed the STAR was placed
Bless you.
into that
If we were
class?
able to do so, because some kids had multiple failures. And so you had to determine, because sometimes they had to go both in reading and in math. Sometimes their schedule did not have it because they had dyslexia class or speech therapy or whatever like that. So sometimes we service those kids also after school or before school. So what we had proposed, this is our we're going to do something very different than we've ever done before. We had proposed that we're going to move that RTI teacher up with the other gen ed teachers and give all of them what we call the MTSS period. So if you were an honors teacher teaching honors reading language arts, you would have your honors kids for reading language arts, and you would have your honors kids for the MTSS period. And they would go back into the bell would ring, they would come out, go for whatever they need to go, then come right back to you as their honors teacher, and you would be servicing them in those classes. Those MTSS classes were geared towards enrichment, refinement, and remediation. So basically, this is the schedule. The teacher would have the same kids, 1st and 2nd, 4th and 5th, and then 7th and 8th, and then you would have a preparation and planning period, but we also kept in mind that we had to continue to service the teachers that we had in those classes because of House Bill 1605, we can't pull them during their preparation and planning period. So we had to put a period in there in order to prepare them to teach these classes. And so
Can I ask a question about class size on that one too? So, are you able to go back a slide?
Okay.
Or 2? There we go. So if we have a number of our middle schools will have 850 next year, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if I take 850 students divided by 3 grade levels, right? So we have about 283 kids in each grade. Divided by 3 reading teachers, or ELAR teachers, sorry, and they're going to service them in 3 different groups, right? They're going to have either a first and second group, a fourth and fifth group, or a seventh and eighth. And I know these are just examples. Then divided into 3 groups. So each of these class periods will have 31.4 students in it.
No, we've already ran it because last year we ran the same 800 kids in that with just 2 teachers. Now we're adding a 3rd teacher. So we've already built master schedule where it shows that the class sizes are within the range of what we have set for middle school.
I hate to
Is
interrupt.
there a 4th teacher then? Because otherwise that's not mathematically
I
possible.
hate to interrupt. We're now we have board members asking questions about something that's not going to happen. I need you, we're bearing the lead. We're not going to go with meets and masters. We're only going to go with approaches and did not meets, which will then decrease the number of students
Okay,
in
all
those
right.
classes.
That's all. I was just figuring out the math. I didn't
So
want this.
the reason why I was bringing this up and the reason why I was painting the picture that I was painting is because even though we strongly feel that we must service every kid like the state is asking
agree.
us to do, there has been some pushback. I'm just going to be honest with it, and it goes against what we believe is what's best for children. But we are willing to allow parents to opt out that
Opt in.
are opt in for meets and master students. They can opt into the MTSS period if they choose to do so. They can. Their students will not be scheduled for the MTS period right off the bat. We will be scheduling every did not meet students and every approaches student, because what the data is telling us is that these students are not ready to access grade level material for the grade level they're moving into for next year,
Only for math and reading.
and only for math and reading, because those are the 2 areas that the state that tracks for accountability for growth from one year to the next.
Well,
So
that-
if you
ahead, Mary.
guys think back
Can I ask
to,
a question about that real quick? Is that then gonna, so you're saying approaches and did not meets would be mandatory MTSS in the subject, the one or both that they failed in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is that gonna require a change to our policy letter, EHAC legal? Because the mandatory classes to take in middle school are in our policy letter.
So there
we
is an
can't mandate it
opportunity-
without us changing our policy, I don't think.
with the new Senate bill, right, there is an opportunity for parents to now opt out of required courses.
Okay.
So if you think back to No Child Left Behind and the Student Success Initiative, which back in like 2012, if a student, a 5th grade, I'm just going to use a 5th grade student, for example. If a 5th grade student failed math, they had a second opportunity to take the STAR test during the summer. If they were not successful that time, they were required to take that additional math course. Very similar to this. The only piece that's missing is we don't have that second opportunity for students to take the STAR test. It's one and done now.
Yeah.
So then the premise behind that is if we automatically enroll these kids who were at approaches and does not meets, because remember, approaches is they're just approaching grade level standards. They haven't mastered or met anything, they're just approaching. So the idea is if these guys are automatically enrolled into that MTSS additional course like SSI, with the Senate bill piece now, parents can opt out of that. So if they're like, you know what, my kid's not doing that, I'll figure out a way to accelerate them at home. They're not going to be engaged in that. But then we also have to figure out what are we doing for those meets and masters kids that we may see a slide, right? Maybe they, as a 5th grade student, just got meets by like, let's say 1 question. There still has to be some sort of intervention for these kids. And it may not happen in Tier 1 instruction. So then parents, in collaboration with the campus, will have an opportunity to opt in to that additional course if they feel it's necessary for their child. So as opposed to us just saying, this is what we're doing for child A, child B, and child C, we know that child A approaches and does not meets is automatically going into MTSS with the opportunity for a parent under Senate bill to be able to opt out. Then these kids that are already at meets and masters have other opportunities unless the campus encourages the parent, hey, they're right there on the cusp. Yes, they are at meets, but just barely. Or they've been a master's kid since 3rd grade, and now all of a sudden they're coming down to meets. Maybe we need to have a different conversation. There's an opportunity for a parent to opt in. The key is it's ownership with the kid and choice with the parent in collaboration with the campus, as opposed to just developing that schedule right off.
Before we get into the questioning, I really want the board and I want you guys to explain. This isn't just this is what we're going to do for approaches and did not meets, and then we're going to hope that the students that are on the cusp of masters and meets get in. We're also going to focus on Tier 1, because if we're really going to make the gains that we need to make, it's got to be in the Tier 1 instruction, whether it's in the honors class or in the regular. And I want you to speak a
And
little
it
bit,
is-
because
it-
what we're going to do next year is, and one of the things that we're going to talk about in the admin summit is this. We've got to start monitoring with the teachers as well as the students. We know who they are, they're identified. So let's start watching weekly. How is Leslie Lee doing? How is Rob Fields doing? And if we don't see that progression through the week, what are we doing to go back and make sure that they catch up? But we can't wait until MOI comes in and say, the student's not where we think they should be. So we're going to start taking a more specific approach and look at that on a weekly basis, and for teachers as well. Hey, are we seeing the improvement that we're supposed to? It's been 4 weeks now, and we're not seeing it. And then we're going to start, giving some academic trainer assistance to those teachers as well. I'm sorry.
And one of the things that we realized really quickly, especially with the number of teachers that are new to the profession, is that they need the time to work collaboratively with their grade level teachers to build the lessons and to go through the materials together and talk about all the different ways, the misconceptions that students can have and everything, which is why that PLC period is so important to this plan also, because we have to also support and do what we call job embedded support, as well as get the students in the right place for the things that they need to do. Now, this change,
Can I jump in on one little, on this is, yes, that these teachers know these babies.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Because they're with them every day. And they, knowing what their babies need is, and improving that communication with parents. And that's something I saw up in Comal, right? Like, there was so much communication at that middle school level about where their students should be. And that was based on what teachers on the ground were seeing, and building those relationships with those parents helped get the kids into the correct classes,
Correct.
is what I saw. And so empowering those teachers and kind of placing that on them to advocate on behalf of their babies, to get them in the place in what they need, and the parent communications at the middle school level, which is where we sometimes lose parents because we just lose them, right? There's no PTO necessarily anymore. That will be the key to the success of that. The only two concerns I would have is, one, just obviously transparency with the parents. It feels like if this is something we're going to go for, codifying that in an EHAC local policy,
Right.
where it is clear that we will be placing the following students in, and you will have an opt-out
Right.
option, and whatever it says in the legal words of it, and the following students will not be automatically placed, but you will have an opt-in, and this is what you do need to opt in, will at least be very transparent, and then how we reflect that on course selection sheets. You may have to have a lot of wording encouraging that, and encouraging parents to go speak to your current kid's teacher about where they should be next year. In fact, at Comal, like, there almost weren't choice sheets, right? Like, teachers placed kids on things, and you got a choice sheet that said where your teacher had recommended you be next year. It wasn't just a blank course sheet that people just circled a bunch of stuff, because parents don't know. I'm not always talking to my kid's teacher, but they know where my kid should be next year. Are some other things too. And then really worrying about class size, because depending on the enrollment of this, is if we go over 25, none of this is going to be effective, right? And then the final thing was kind of what we talked about a little bit in closed session yesterday, which is those best teachers with teaching certificates in our district have to be placed in the places where our kids need the highest tier. I mean, everybody needs tier 1, don't get me wrong, but when we identify areas like 7th grade math or something like that, we have got to get the best and the brightest that exist out there certified and in those classrooms, because that's where we're really going to see a lot of that tier 1 instruction growth, and how we are instructing is with the best teachers we have, and whatever we got to do to entice them over to help, right? And we need you here, I think is as we move forward with a lot of personnel stuff, it's going to be really important.
What Dr. Toppin was getting ready to get into is that they've already kind of built the schedule for most of these students, including the meets and masters. So what they're going to have to do is go back and rebuild those classes for the approaches and did not meets. And in doing so, we can clearly communicate with those parents as to, hey, and some of the parents, it's going to be a phone call. Your student passed by one question.
Yes,
You might want to opt in.
yes.
You know, or they mastered by one question.
Yep.
And if we want to continue that growth, you might want to opt in. But
But I do want to caution that that the state does not recommend that we put a form together for opting in and opting out. That has to come from the parent. When it comes to this type of setup, the parent has to write that they want them to opt in. The parent has to write that they want them to opt out. We cannot build a form for that because that goes against policy from the state.
Which can be as simple as an email, though.
An
That
email,
goes out to the entire
a piece of
campus.
notebook,
It
paper,
says, right.
whatever, but the parent has to be the one that
That initiates it.
That
Yeah, no,
initiates the
That's why I think
process.
just wording that there is an opt-in and an opt-out
Right.
exists in whatever the law currently says.
Correct.
But I don't think we have, and just.
The district cannot provide
contact
it,
your
the
school,
parent can
right?
find it.
Like
It's
contact your
online.
school if you want to opt in or opt out is all it needs to say, and they can go work out whatever that is, email, whatever they choose to do.
And I also want to, also under the MTSS period, it's really about making sure that the teacher has an opportunity to work with kids in small groups. That is one of the things that they really, really stress, that the teacher pulls groups based on student ability. So if you are a student that just needs enrichment because you're at there and almost had to pull you into a small group while the other students are doing other things in stations, whether that be a technology instructional based station or whether that be something that the student is doing for them to explore in cooperative groups or project-based learning or station learning at that particular time. And that is kind of the setup that we have set up this MTSS period. Did a lot of research, did call a lot of people at Region 20 and also at TEA to make sure that we were setting it up for the best possible way to make sure we're meeting the needs of all kids, no matter which bucket they fall into.
I see a little bit of a communication challenge with parents. If we're needing them to make a conscious decision to opt in or out of something, and there's no form, it sounds like you're prepared to do a little bit of hands-on communication. That would be great.
This is something we do every year anyway, because as soon as we get the scores in, campuses have to contact parents, like your child did not pass STAR. And we're offering House Bill 1416 hours during the summer for them to come and do that. So this is a conversation we take with parents every year, every time STAR comes out. And either they show up in the summertime for House Bill 1416, which we're concluding today. Today, they either show up for House Bill 1416, or they have to attend after-school tutorials, before-school tutorials. But what you know as well as I do, that a lot of kids are involved in a lot of after-school events that prevent them from participating in this thing. And so we still have to service our students, and this is one of the ways that we're going to do it under this model.
The other thing we wanted to let the board know is that in an effort to change the schedules, we'll probably be calling back in the counselors a little earlier because we kind of put this stuff a certain way, and we're going to readjust on that. So we're going to have to get some people to come back in and make these changes quickly so we can get the schedules out to the students.
Yes, the course requests have to be re-entered into the SIS system, the student information system.
We stand ready for any questions.
So this is very reminiscent of what elementary teachers have done all along
Boom.
in their
Yes.
classroom. It's, this is what we call true differentiation. So we're not only supporting the students who are struggling, we're supporting the students who are on level and supporting the students who are already above level. And my feeling has always been every single one of my students deserves at least a year's worth of growth. And you just do what you can to make sure that happens. In the MTSS level, are there going to be a mix of students who are
Yes.
approaches meets, and so they'll be all in there together?
Because
So-
their schedule's going to drive where they're going to be. And when we are dismantling the master schedule in the upcoming weeks and re-entering information, we had initially met with all of our teachers in the middle school and told them this is what was going to be happening for next year, and they were going to be getting the same kids back. When we dismantle the schedule, that's not going to be a guarantee.
Okay.
So first period, they'll have RLA, second period, they'll have MTSS, but they may get
It may
a
be
totally
different
group of-
students,
Yes,
right.
yes. Because in order for them to get their own students back, they have to have those
Yeah.
linked, and we can't
And you
link them
can't do that,
anymore if
and
we're
it's not
going
gonna
to
work.
dismantle the schedule.
Okay.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because now you may get two different approaches to receiving the information.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Any other?
I have some other concerns about the impact on our staffing for electives. Because now, essentially, a good number of kids will have far less electives than they had before, and that's appropriate for some of our kids who need to be in math versus something else. But from a staffing model, and thank you for providing the class counts on some of this, and I understand this is before the change,
ma'am.
obviously, type thing. But, when we see things like, the theater teacher at Kirby Middle School only averaging 24 kids a day, because that's what the class count is for theater, that's not an FTE. Like, at a 1 to 25, a teacher needs to see 150 to 175 students a day.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
Before we even started down this path, we realized that some schools did not have this course request for some of the electives. So a lot of our schools will be sharing teachers.
Okay.
So like if you're talking about Kirby Middle School, Kitty Hawk Middle Schools, Cibolo Creek Middle School, Wood Lake Middle School, a lot of their FTEs did not have the number of students assigned to it for those classes. So those principals worked out a schedule where that teacher will be like 2 or 3 periods there, or one period there, and then at another school the rest of the day.
Okay, because I didn't want to lose, especially some of those introductory CTE Level 1 courses,
Yes.
Principles of Human Service, all of those. If there's only 40 kids who are able to fit it into their schedule, I didn't want those classes not to be able to be offered.
In the case of the CTE teachers, those teachers will teach their 2 sections of their CTE course, but they're also picking up the college and career readiness course.
okay.
And there are a number of kids assigning enough for them to have a full teaching schedule at their campus.
Okay, because I was worried if we start
Yeah, we
canceling
look at all of that when we're building master
anything,
schedule.
then all of a sudden CCMR numbers start to not look as great, because it's harder to get through your CTE pass at high school now that we went back to a 7, right? So knocking out any of your CTE classes, your foreign language, art ones, so you can get to AP art, getting those things in at the middle school level for our, master's kids, so that they can move on to AP calculus, and they can move on to AP art and finish a level 4 practicum in a CTE program is very important to a lot of our board goals too. So, looking at kids across the spectrum, we didn't want to lose options for some of those kids because of this, so.
Well, in the introduction, a lot of times students will find what they're interested in or what they're going to get into in high school by getting exposed to it in middle school. Because one of the other items that we're going to have on the agenda is the fact that we don't have the interest at high school. Well, if we go down to the middle school and create that interest, now when they get to high school, we've got a bigger group of kids.
This is
that want-
about getting to level
Yeah, you
4.
take an intro to technology, digital media type class, and you've got an amazing teacher in 8th grade for that is pushing students into that career path based on their interest and explaining you can make $150,000 a year if you go to UTSA for this, then we don't want to lose feeding those kids into those
Correct.
career paths and having that salesmanship going on and career explorations, and funneling kids into CTE either. So, and hopefully, I like the number of counts of the career explorations class, or it's called a couple different things.
CCE.
In order to get those kids focused, because it's not the college we grew up. We just went to college undeclared, right?
There's a
We're
lot
like,
of
I don't
different
know,
paths.
we'll figure it out, right? Later on, we'll declare a major our junior year. Well, that's not the way college works right now. You have to apply your senior year, follow your senior year, and you got to commit to, I want to get into engineering, I want to get into business. You got to know that. And I don't think that's fair, but that's just the world that we live in right now. So they've got to get through those paths, get through those classes, have a fair idea of what they probably want to do so that they can get those applications to all those specialty programs, which feels like everything's specialty, unless you're going to go in interdisciplinary, type thing, and leveraging them for their follow-on plans.
So that was
Any
the.
other questions? I'll look down this way. Yes, Ms. Jones.
I just wanted to say thank you for your hard work on this and for the work that your department's going to have to do coming up, redoing the schedule. So thank you. It's appreciated.
I want to echo that, what Ms. Jones just said, because that's an amazing amount of work that you're about to embark on, and I'm going to be very interested to see if we're able to get that's what we need to do most, is focus on our performance
Yes.
in all our schools. So if y'all feel this is going to push us upward, then I'm excited about it. So thank you.
Thank you. I will tell you, we don't do anything without a lot of research.
Yeah, and look forward to seeing the data, right? Like the kids, and looking at the master's kids that opt in and the master's kids that opt out, right?
Right.
Let's get some data on that so we can see ROI and everything else. And then if we can work with Ms. Holmes on, see if TASB can help us with some potential policy language on an EHAC local that codifies what we said. And that way, we're at least transparent in our policies in how we plan to kind of execute this.
Will do.
And can change it as
I
needed.
had one other question.
Go ahead, Ms.
Because I
Stanford.
did get an email about the music program, and there was a concern that kids would not be able to take a full year of music. Is that going to interfere? I think the reading and math is most important, but
I will tell you this, and it's on the PowerPoint that I sent to, in the board book, that the only requirements for middle school is a half year of health, either a half year or a full year of art, and a year of music. And it doesn't have to be consecutively. And so what we are seeing, we're seeing a trend in middle school that kids are not gravitating towards band the way they used to in the past. We're seeing the numbers drop slightly where kids are exploring other venues, theater, art, choirs, numbers are up with that. And so we are in conversations with some of our principals because we may have to stack as a lot of times they want to keep brass and woodwinds separate. But if you only have 6 brass kids and you have 4 woodwind kids, we're not going to make a class of 6 and 4. It has to be stacked. And so we're having conversation about that. But in my conversations with the middle school principals, the trend is down in band specifically. Fine arts, we're looking at, the trend is going up. And those are the numbers that I shared with y'all in the materials that I sent to the board book that shows you how many kids actually requested those classes on their course request sheets.
Well, and I'd say this, Ms. Stanford, I wouldn't say that they can't take it. I will say this. The more you need remediation, the less autonomy you're going to have in the schedule that you get.
Yeah.
Because our goal has to be to meet your needs as you move through this process, because all of this is a preparation for the EOC programs that they're going to have to take at the high school level.
To
And if we don't
graduate.
get that foundation in at the
Oh, I
middle
agree.
school,
I know.
then they may wind up not even graduating playing the clarinet. you
Yeah.
know, So.
Well, and there are going to be some challenges at some of our innovative schools because like
They have required
Kirby,
courses.
for example, and again, I think you missed the 4 semesters of PE or LOTC that have to be taken, plus a semester of health, plus a whole credit of a fine art. But 7, if you're a double failure or a double approaches, or you're opted into both these MTSSs, the only elective a Kirby middle schooler will have, if their parents don't opt out, they will have 1 elective, and that 1 elective will be taken up 2 of the years of PE and the other year of art and things. So if you're a double failure and your parent doesn't opt out, you will be unable to take 3 years of choir. You will be unable to take 3 years of band under this program. And I think Woodlake isn't as effective because LOTC counts as PE, but kids who are athletes, well, there's going to be limited electives for any of those specialty schools unless those parents agree and want to opt their kids out of it, which we don't want to encourage that.
But the goal of MTSS is always that we may have this issue your 6th grade year. We're going to work really hard to get you out of it. So
I
your
agree.
7th grade year, we're not having this conversation. That is the goal, always the goal, to move kids.
Yeah, and we want kids to show up. Remember, they don't show up for math class. They show up in the morning because they're looking forward to art class or they're looking forward to football practice after school. We don't want it to negatively impact attendance either, which is trends that people will see, once, if they don't get enough electives, that attendance can go down, which is why some school districts did AB schedules, right? and had massive, they wouldn't come to school on the core, on the core day, right? They would only come to school when it was elective day, type thing, is why a lot of schools went away from that kind of AB, type schedule also.
And
So.
students will still be able to participate in athletics after school, but we really need them to get remediated during the instructional day.
Correct, yes, no, and encouraging. It used to be like you kind of had to be in athletics to be in a sport. It was highly, highly encouraged. Like that trend of, no, 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 we want y'all to come out because we know you didn't get any whatever today. Please stay after school, and please be actively involved in maybe that's some art clubs too, right? If kids can't fit art in their schedule, maybe we look at some of those after-school programming things that maybe we can increase at the middle school level to give them what they maybe have to miss out on a little bit during the school day too, so they're still getting something.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the concern expressed involved competitive music classes where they're trying to prepare for UIL competitions. So, but again, the academics has to take priority. But do you see a conflict there? Will there still be able to be enough?
They have to have a fine arts credit before, they have to do a fine arts course before they leave middle school. We have been in contact with our fine arts people to talk about, Mr. Witt and I have had many conversations, because a lot of his classes are built for a year, but if we could build it for a semester, it'll give us a little bit more wiggle room with it, and the students can participate after school and still be in competition and all of those different things. So that is one of the things that we are not going to be able to take on this year. Course catalog is set, master schedule is going to be dismantled, and that's a conversation we're talking about for next year, looking at making some of those music classes more semester-friendly.
Okay.
So that we can give kids more options. They only have to take one course before they graduate, before they leave and go to high school. Okay?
All right.
I've been waiting patiently. And again, my
Sorry, go ahead,
apologies,
Mr.
I have
Macias.
not been feeling well this last night and this morning. And also, I hope we don't do many more of these type of meetings, 11 o'clock. I work during the day, so it's hard to get away. So, but I do want to add to your commentary. I appreciate the emphasis on trying to get our students to grade level. That's always been the challenge, and middle school it's not unique to Judson. It's a challenge across the state. But I do feel that the recommendations you have are going to make an impact. The other thing to note, too, is that I've been here through 4 superintendents. Every time a superintendent comes, there's always this new strategy. I like the fact that we've consistently worked as a team for years, and that we're trying now to really evolve in how we address middle school. But what I didn't hear about, and probably appropriately enough, it wasn't about this, but part of the challenge academically are all, I won't say all, but there's a portion tied to discipline, to bullying, to teachers telling me they're being yelled at by students in the classroom, not having support in ISS, they're put back into the classroom. And so those things, and in fact, kids hiding in the bathrooms and not going to class, so they're cutting class. All of those things undermine what we're trying to do there in addressing all students, especially those that are probably the ones that really need the support. So the reason why I was such an advocate for the smaller middle school campuses is so that we can address those issues. Because honestly, if I come back to it, teachers have told me, I don't care if we have 2 extra kids in my class. If you help us with the students that are unruly or discipline challenges, and I have 23 kids that are focused on learning, that changes the game. I'm certain that's in middle school as well. So the game changer for us is making sure that we have strategies to address these type of issues. And that way we can kind of really help all students. So I'm just going to say, Dr. Fields and Dr. Toppin, that, that these are still elements that this great plan needs these other strategies in order to address them. And yesterday, we kind of went back and realigned our counselor type things, which, again, did not support that part of it. But we need more attention in middle school. And I mean, we can't overstep that. So if we have more resources this coming year, meaning we're able to put a Vader, we pass a Vader, I would like to see more put into our middle schools to close the gap I really feel like if we look at any of our programs, that's where our biggest challenges are, that transition from fifth grade to sixth to seventh. And you were stating it yourself, which means more needs to be done there, tutoring, counseling, just supporting smaller campuses. So I hope this is just the beginning of the effort. I'm looking forward to the data, and obviously I will continue to push for this type of stuff. But I just wanted to kind of put that on record. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Macias. I would tell you that we did speak a little bit earlier about the Tier 1 instruction and the importance of monitoring that weekly. I would tell you at the administrative level, we'll be monitoring the state of the campus as well, and sitting down with the principals saying, hey, we're noticing on write-ups, this is what we're saying. We're noticing on classroom referrals, this is what we're saying. How are we addressing this as we move forward? As opposed to waiting till half the year is over and then things are kind of out of control. So we'll be doing that on a weekly basis as well. But to your point, when the VEDER is successful, if we find that these are one of the things that maybe we cut a little bit too much, then we would be back
Yes.
at the board saying, hey, we need some assistance here, or at least at this campus, because this is what we're seeing. So we appreciate that window being left open for that. Thank you.
I don't think any action required on this. Major curriculum initiatives have to be presented to the board per our policy letter, but doesn't require action
Understood.
necessarily. I think if there was any level of disagreement, but I think I'm seeing consensus of the board and district on how to move forward. So if everybody's comfortable, I think we can just move on, sans a
Yes,
vote
ma'am.
on it.
Got it.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 5C, discussion and possible action regarding approval of changes to compensation plan stipends. Ms. Lee and I were talking about this, and just some history for the new board members. So 2 years ago, we did some pretty significant things with our TCNL teacher pay scale in order to bring us to kind of the top of the market on teacher pay, and especially starting teacher pay, not so much in the middle, but and in order to be competitive in the marketplace and recruit and retain our teachers. Then the next year, which was last spring, we did another pay audit with TASB, and we focused on the 100 through 500 scale, so everybody not on the TCNL. And the board approved the TASB recommendations that brought all those midpoints, 100 through 500, up to the TASB recommended amounts based on the market. The only thing that was missing from that was we had articulated, we wanted their little stipend study that they do with that pay audit, but we hadn't accidentally got that ordered, but that's okay. Little baby steps at a time. So we had to go back and get the stipend audit, which TASB also does. And so we did that, and we received that. It had been quite a while since we had addressed stipends, and especially from a market value standpoint. And so we kind of made a promise that we were going to go do this survey, and we were going to go back and address those, because it was the one pay area that had not been addressed yet by the board over the last 2 years. So I know we are in, obviously, strange situations, but concerning finances right now, and there's a lot of right-sizing, and that's why I prefer not to call it downsizing or cutting. I prefer right-sizing, because there are things that have to be changed up, things have to be changed down, and some things stay the same. And I think we're going to see a lot of that over the next year as we figure out what right looks like. And with these stipends being, a number of them were noted to be significantly below market value compared to our surrounding districts. And that was just comparing to all districts. So you start to look at the people we compete against, whether that's in marching band, athletics, a decathlon, UIL, all those things. The 5A and 6A schools we compete against, many of their stipends are even higher than that. But just looking at the average that TASB gave us, I don't know if it got into board book. If not, I handed out a copy to everyone. That's the list of stipends that TASB noted as being enough under market value to be brought up. And I think in order to be equitable across this district, we have fixed so many people's salaries to get them closer to where we should be, that just because we're in a weird financial situation, I don't want these programs and stuff, because these really speak to our objectives too. This is how, people don't come to public school for math. They can get math anywhere, right? But they come here for extracurriculars. They come here for competition. They come here for the barbecue club. And they come here for all these other things that we do, art club and other things that we provide that charter schools and private schools just don't, many of them. And so in order to recruit families, retain families, student experience, student well-being, coaching, teaching, and mentoring with adults that are so important in these students' lives, the attendance initiatives, the behavior initiatives that come through some of these programs and the amount of hours these people put in outside for these kids, whether you're watching I Play Coach, with these kids 4 days a week after school, to the marching band out there on Saturday at 6 o'clock in the morning marching. This is the heart of what we do. So I'm proposing that these ones that need to be brought up to market, be brought up to market. And like we discussed, as I think it was right before the new board members, there are also some that are a little over market, and there's some that shouldn't be stipends. There is more work to do on that, because there's some right sizing of that, but that was going to require a little more research into those positions. So I don't want to hold off on this while you guys are still kind of doing those proposals and research, but I would like to see those potential reductions and rolling into salary presented, but I didn't want to hold off on this.
That's what we thought we were going to do over the course of the year with all of these. We really got the impression from the board that we were going to look at this as we move forward, and then over the course of the year, by the end of the 25-26 school year, then be able to make a recommendation on, hey, this is what the stipend's going to be as we go into 26-27. If we're ready to move forward, we can do that. I would say one of the statements you made was that we looked at the comp plan or the recommendations from TASB, and that we brought up everybody to market value. I would say that we intentionally did not on some of these. We made increases, but we didn't bring them to market value. But on some of the stipends, we started sitting down, and I want to turn this over to Dr. Taganow and Ms. Davis, because they were the ones who really sat down with the personnel. On some of them, we even got recommendations from the directors in charge of those areas that we don't need to go up on this. This needs to stay the same or even go down to a certain capacity, because we're not really needing to take advantage of it. And then on a lot of these, especially on the list that you had given us, we actually went through and some of the, like the one question you had on the head coaches at middle school, sometimes they split that stipend. So if there's two people there, then they'll take that stipend and give it to two individuals, not just to one. That's why you see the increase of number in some of these areas. So it's not always just that stipend goes to this individual.
Yeah, I think what you and I discussed, that I have the stipend count on there.
Right.
Like, the management implementation of the stipend
Correct.
amount is an HR management function to figure out who actually qualifies for these stipends, ensure the right individuals then are being paid them. Those were the counts that TASB gave us. But management doing a complete relook to make sure the right people are getting the right stipends is kind of the phase 2 of any of this going into next year.
And then I guess the other concern, and I'll turn it over then, is our big concern was the mixed message. You know what I'm saying? We're right sizing in certain areas, and then now we're coming back and increasing to the tunes of hundreds of thousands in others. So, Dr. Taganow, Ms. Davis. Dr. Taganow, Ms. Davis. Oh,
Yes, sir. Thank
gotcha,
you.
sorry.
A second.
So yes, in reviewing the list that you submitted, Ms. Ryan, we also gathered and compiled our list, and it seems like some of the stipends or the increases that you listed here are more than what TASB recommended. And then there's a couple of stipends on here that we don't currently pay out, and so it wasn't part of that audit, and so those are added on there. I think it's the last 5 that you have on your list. But we were also under the same impression several approaches when we engaged in the stipend audit was to see where we were. Since I've been here, we hadn't really looked at that, and that is something that employees had brought up as concerns in task forces and surveys and things like that, is to take a look at stipends. But in the several meetings that we've had in closed session, we were under the impression that we were going to take the year to review Ms. Guy Guzman, who presented the information, let us know that the stipend markets usually stay consistent for about 3 to 5 years. And so if we took a pause to really take a look at it, that doing the big changes starting next year would still be appropriate based on the market values that were on here. So we were under the impression that we were going to just kind of hold and do those reviews. But in the meantime, we did, in an effort to create a guidance document to really fully understand stipends, grandfathered stipends and those things, we did ask our directors to go in and take a look at each of the stipends that are in our comp plan, describe what additional duties are allocated to a stipend, how they're paid out, how they're established, are they assigned to someone, is it volunteer, and just additional information. And so when we gathered some of that feedback, there were some directors that explained that this particular stipend shouldn't be paid out because it is already something as a part of their, a person's duty. So some of those review stipends that we had indicated in one of the board meetings prior to this, we have some of that information compiled. So,
And that's why I think I left all of those off of this list, because there were still pending questions. So
Sure.
the only ones on this list were the no questions ones.
but there are some on the list that we don't currently pay out. So,
I think UIL was the only ad, because when we did we only recently have UIL, I'm sorry, not UIL, Unified, sorry. Unified is a new program for Judson, and so those were the only additions, and I think the whole board had received those separate market comps for those. But were they not sent to you? I'll forward them over to you, sorry.
Yeah.
You did.
Found this name list, I didn't remember seeing anything separate.
We got an email with that information.
I don't
Okay.
think I got it.
Yeah, and I know I went and checked those districts, and those numbers lined up with what we were sent. So there were only 5 of those for the unified, which,
that's not being suggested by admin, or are we adding that? Who's adding
It
that?
would be an add-on to what was reported in the pay
Correct.
system review draft, because that wasn't in here. So now, if you're asking me personally, have I gone back and checked these for consistency purpose? No, ma'am. I didn't get the email that showed all of this. At least I don't believe I did. I don't want to misspeak. But I would tell you on another one that's on here is the color guard, the Flag Corps sponsor. I think we decided wasn't that a contracted thing at the high school level, Dr. Toppin? Yes, sir. So we really pay people to come in to do that training for us. So to have that as a stipend that you would then give to somebody when you're contracting someone to come in and provide that is almost like not needed.
well, that would be, the position description of that would, in your manual of stipends, would indicate that there is a person who is performing that function.
I think
So
it-
if you choose to contract that out at a certain school, then there would just not be a position.
And what we're saying is that a while back, that used to be a position in band, but band has become so competitive now, especially with marching,
Yeah.
that you don't usually go to the band director and say, we need you to put together a choreographed flag routine for the upcoming UIL competition.
Well, I think, but there's two different, so like, the band itself hires a choreographer and puts the band stuff together, and then there's a color guard choreographer. That's a completely separate contract. This is the person in charge of the 50 flag people at Wagner, right? Like, huge flag program. There is a teacher who does that. Is it the Dan? I don't know who it is. I don't know.
It's not my understanding.
better.
I would-
Mr. Alejandro.
Mr. Alejandro? Okay, so there is a person on the teacher pay scale who supervises and exercises and practices the color guard every day, completely
what?
separate from the choreographer?
That's the
No, from
contract
what
person.
I understand with, when I asked Mr. Perez is that the band itself on their, what budget it is, then they pay that.
Oh, they pay the choreographer, yes, but that's different than there's someone in charge of flags and color guard. There's no teacher?
I don't.
No,
Then if
ma'am,
no one
there's,
qualifies
there's not
for
a
the stipend,
teacher
then no one
because
qualifies.
they are
They do
typically
come in, yeah.
hired by a company, and they take multiple contracts around the city, around the state, and around the district. So that individual does not work for Judson ISD. It's a contractor.
It's a
That's
contract,
hired,
that's
and
right.
that's pretty
That comes
much.
to every practice, every day after
Yes.
school and
Correct.
all
They
day
have
Saturday?
to, that's
Yes,
part of their
Okay, so
contract.
then no one would qualify then for that. That stipend number would be zero and no
That's-
cost to the
that's-
district.
that's what I was saying.
think.
Okay,
so.
but if that contract ever went away, then that would have to be assumed by someone in that position. So it's okay that the stipend's there, we just wouldn't pay it to anybody, because we don't have anybody doing that right now.
It's not the typical practice to have a color guard coordinator on staff
Okay,
at any high school.
I would be
unless
fine
it's a
removing that
competitive-
one. I'll trust that y'all have researched that one.
We'll make sure before we do.
I'm just a little confused. This document you gave us with all these stipends, are these the cumulative amount? What are you trying to do? What's this cost? I mean, I just need some clarity. What is your recommendation?
Correct, so I took off the TASB or the stipend audit. This is the counts that they had in their document. This was the market value that they had in their document, and then multiplied that out. So if 19 campus elementary UIL coordinators, if there's really 19 of them, and their stipend is 700, or is moved up to 700, that would cost us $7,600 to increase that stipend. So if you add up that last column based on the counts of the stipends, it would be approximately $364,000. And obviously if the count, increase, right? And if the counts change because maybe we don't have this many people, then that number could go up and down as we have different people on it. But the count of all these, all of the changes, and this does not include any of the decreases we talked about because there was too much information still needed from district on
And
it.
you created this document?
Correct, off the TASB pay audit and then.
No, but you created it though, right? Did administration create this or did you?
No, I created that, yes.
Okay.
Dr. Fields, may I add some clarification? There are 12 stipends that I counted here that are above TASB's proposed stipend in the TASB study audit. Would you like me to detail which those are?
Well, part of the issue is with the guidance you all gave to TASB, didn't come from the board. What you all said you gave them was to, I don't want to say go on the cheap, but we're in a situation, so don't bring everybody up to, market was the guidance. So what she had said was there were ones that she didn't, based on the guidance she got from district, to not necessarily go up to market on everything. We've gone up to market on a significant number of things, so I don't see any, if we only do this once every 5 years, right, because we haven't done this in a very long time, what TASB found to be the market median, so 50th percentile, right, that is what is indicated in the proposed stipend. Because I know that the people in these positions are well above average. So this literally just brings them up to the 50th median percentile of our area. And I think it should be higher than this, but at this point, just bringing people up to average, if that's all we can do, then that's all we can do right now. But eventually, I think we do have to look at our competitive areas where we have people out competing at state and choir against some very high competing school districts. At some point, we're gonna have to look at what our competition's actually paying for. But I didn't go that far.
Well, I would say this, Ms. Ryan, I would ask that we just stick with whatever the recommendation was from TASB, and then we look at those individually on if we want to go more. I don't remember, I know I didn't speak with TASB and say, don't take us to market value on anything. Now, I know,
She stated that on the video that you guys had told her that in the presentation.
I'm not
she
saying
gave.
that
Or
she
I don't think it was
wasn't-
on camera, you're right, we were in closed session.
but I'm not saying she wasn't told that, I'm just
Okay.
saying I didn't tell her
Okay.
that. So, what I would say, though, is that if we find that one of the recommendations that they're making doesn't bring us to where we feel like it needs to, then we need to deal with that one separately.
So,
Do you
so
want to
there,
roll through those 12 real quick so we know what we're talking about at least?
yes,
Is that
but,
okay?
yes, I would love
Okay.
to do that. And I'd also like to provide clarification. We did share with her that we were in a budget deficit, and similar to last year, not everybody in the 100 to 500 pay scale was brought up to market value. In the proposal that Ms. Ryan typed up for you all, everybody is brought up to market value, even more so, including the 12 that go beyond what TASB is proposing. But there was no explicit direction to say, do not bring anybody up to market value. So I just wanted to clarify that.
We also have 2 positions that we just eliminated last night that are on here. So
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
it sounds like this needs to be revised. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, if you
Ms.
could tell us,
Davidson.
I did cross off golf and powerlifting.
Correct.
Because we did eliminate those positions.
So the volleyball head at the high school, TASB proposed 7,000. The proposed stipend that Ms. Ryan typed up was 7,500. Volleyball assistant high school, TASB proposed 4,000. Ms. Ryan's proposing 5,000. Golf head was just eliminated. Swimming diving head, high school, TASB proposed 6,000.
Oh, can you slow your roll? Slow your roll a little bit. Hold on. I'm sorry. Volleyball head, high school, 7,000. Okay.
Your proposal is 7,500.
Yep.
Volleyball assistant high school, TASB proposed 4,000. Your proposal is 5,000.
Okay.
Golf head high school.
Oh, we don't have to talk about that. We're crossing that off after last night.
Swimming diving head high school, TASB proposed 6,000. Your proposal is 6,500.
Okay.
Tennis head high school, TASB proposed 6,000. Your proposal is 8,200. Track head high school, TASB's proposed stipend is 6,000. The proposed stipend here is 6,500. Wrestling head high school, TASB's proposed stipend is 6,000. The proposed stipend here is 6,500. Tennis assistant coach high school, TASB proposed 4,000. You proposed 5,000.
No, that would be,
Learning assistant.
it was proposed at market value is 5,000, and then proposed stipend 5,000, but what we're finding is what TASB proposed in the handbook was 4,000.
Oh, did I say that?
No, you said
No,
that.
you said it right. We're good.
She was trying to catch up on the
Oh,
right line.
understood,
Sorry.
understood. Color guard flag corps, TASB proposed $0.
Okay. And I think we just
Discussed that
consensus
one.
to take that one
Pep
off.
squat sponsor at the middle school, TASB proposed $600. You proposed $1,500. The newspaper advisor at the high school, TASB proposed $600. You proposed $1,600. The yearbook advisor at the high school, TASB proposed $600. You proposed $1,900. Those are the 12. In addition, TASB did not audit the UIL Unified Coordinator because we do not pay out those stipends.
Currently.
They are included here.
Correct. Yeah, some of TASB's stuff is very interesting, like if every other high school around the area is paying an average of $1,900 for their yearbook, to recommend $600, that's like a little bit inexplicable. Looks like most of the rest of these, are most $500. I will say tennis I find very much off, because tennis has 2 full seasons. Sorry, my kids played tennis for like a minute.
But who
Only a
increased
minute.
them, though? If TASB made a recommendation, how'd they get increased?
To market, to what the 50th percentile is of the average of these positions across the area.
And who calculated that?
TASB, those numbers I have and proposed are straight, the market value is straight out of the TASB
TASB
document.
indicated the market value. They also indicated their proposed
What they
stipend.
proposed, yes.
And so I indicated to you what TASB proposed to bring them up to, and it appears that Ms. Ryan is indicating we bring them up to market value.
Correct.
In the same study that we did last year, not everybody in the 100 to 500 pay scale was brought up to market value. In fact, most people were not. They were brought closer to market value, but not to market value. In reference to what Dr. Fields stated earlier with the cuts and deficiencies that were brought forward last night. and
Right
now-
sizing is, yeah.
Right, I apologize, right sizing,
Right.
to now have the desire to bring all stipends above the recommendation of TASB's proposed stipend might ring differently. to
Correct, and
some
I
people.
didn't make these numbers up, like Monica didn't say, oh, let's pay the tennis coach 5,000, right? Like, this
Nobody-
is straight off of TASB, so again, let's say,
Not their proposal,
assistant-
though.
But
their
it was the market
value.
value. It's not
Correct.
like the number was just brought out of the.
Yeah,
but
I
to
didn't
your
just
point,
come
it
up
was-
with numbers,
It was
though.
market value. It's
TASB's
what-
saying if we look at every high school across our area and you look at their assistant tennis coach at all of these high schools, the average that those people are being paid, that includes 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, small schools and stuff like that, the average is 5,000.
But one of the things that Ms. Guzman did state when she was here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Tagana, is that their proposed is based on what they found as an interest in the district and involvement, not just based on, you know what I'm saying, market value. So I remember her saying that if we see that there's not that big of an interest, then we're not saying you need to go up to market value on that.
So those are other factors that TASB studies, right? And she did mention to us, what is a priority within the district? Are you having a difficult time finding people? Because part of this is to make sure that we are competitive. Are you having a difficult time finding people to support that? What is it that they do? What is it that the district values? And that is part of their recommendation in proposing their stipend, whether it is they bring them all the way to market value or not.
Okay, that's interesting. I look at some of these positions and I look at our losses and our attrition of the people who fill a lot of these positions, and attrition has been very high in our fine arts, athletics, and those things. And we have schools that don't have some activities. You go to a UIL competition of our elementary schools, and there's some schools who have not participated. And maybe if there was the appropriate stipend that the rest of the area was paying, then maybe we could increase those offerings in UIL elementary school, so we could have some of those things. Because again, these are in support of our board goals. Extracurricular participation is straight in, is it 1 point, I don't remember which number, I don't have them up standing in front of me.
1.1, I believe.
2.1 or something like that, increase, that
Priority
is
one.
one of our measurements, is how do we increase
1.2.
participation in extracurriculars, not to get trophies, but that helps the social emotional of our children. They have something to participate in, they have an adult, and these are things that are important in education too.
Oh, you don't have to sell athletics to an ex-coach.
No,
I'm with you.
I know, and it's band, and it's chess club, and it's yarn club, and it's barbecue club. It's like there's so, and I want more of those kinds of clubs, because there will always be a football team, right, for certain kids. But it's the kids who don't have a club and don't have an after-school activity that we need to incentivize creating those opportunities. I think Woodlake Hills is doing cornhole, one of their guys over there, and it's like, great, as many kids as we can get in and have them find a home at Judson and a home within their community. You have to spend money to have results, type thing. So if this is a board goal and bringing this, and again, we can go back and pull up all the 5A, 6A stipends, and I'll tell you, that's gonna come up a lot. The dollar amount's gonna be a lot higher than this, if we go back and study our surrounding competition markets. We've been sent a number of pieces of data from different people on what other people are saying, and I'm like, oh, we can't do that. Like, we're, even I'm gonna temper what my recommendations are, and I think many of these differences are, $500 differences. We can argue back and forth on stuff, but,
My concern is this, Ms. Ryan. I see the need to come up in some of these. It was my understanding that we were going to do this over the course of the year, not just right now, and move everybody up. Because I want to be sensitive to the right sizing and then the increasing. Because I don't want to send a mixed message of we're right sizing certain areas, departments, professions, and then now we're just giving a blanket $300,000 increase across
I think that's the
board.
important part of messaging is it is right sizing. And it's not going to be decreases everywhere. It's going to be increases where appropriate, staying the same where appropriate, decreases where appropriate. It's not just about cuts. That's not how you right size.
I agree.
And there are, when we talk about number of days people work, right? It has to, I've used the word precision, right? There may be people working 200 that need to be on 210, and there may be 226s that need to be at 220. But that is directed from the position, right? Has to be with precision analysis, and that has to be right-sized, whether that's up, down, or the same. I think that's the budgeting philosophy and the right-sizing the district philosophy, that, yeah, some things are gonna go up because they need to go up, because that's what the environment dictates, and some things are gonna go down, and that's what is going to make this district look right on the other side of this, once all of these things get implemented.
Well, I was
And
prepared to consider the stipend increases that TASB was recommending, but I wasn't prepared to go above TASB's recommendation by anyone else's calculations. I would want to see this amended back to TASB so that we could.
And Laura, I'd be willing to go with that also, I
Okay.
think, because these can always be relooked.
Sure.
Right, and we can go back to departments
Yep.
and really, when we go to look at reductions and stuff like that, this is always things we can bring back. That if the safest thing to do right now is let's just go to TASB and then we'll continue to address it. I think it's important symbolically too. It's not,
Yeah, that's the most-
$500 isn't keeping somebody or not keeping somebody. It's the fact that we are trying to bring everybody, where we need to be across our area. I am perfectly happy with that one.
That's the most I'd want to do right now in the budget situation we're in.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see this revised back to TASB's recommendations. And I know we don't have the decreases in there. That's being worked on separately. However, we've kind of set a pattern of not bringing on any decreases this year.
I would,
So-
just in the essence of clarity, I'd like to make the motion just so everybody hears exactly what we're talking about. And then if there's a second, I'll open it back up then for everyone's comments. But I just want to make, because we've gone back and forth a little time. So my motion would be to approve the changes to the compensation plan in regards to stipends with the following changes. Volleyball, head high school, 7,000. Volleyball assistant high school, 4,000. Golf head high school removed. Powerlifting head high school removed. Swimming, diving head high school, 6,000. Tennis head high school, 6,000. Wrestling head high school, 6,000. Did I just miss track? Yes. Sorry. Track head high school, 6,000. Tennis assistant high school, 4,000. Color guard flag corps sponsor removed. Pep squad sponsor middle school, 600. Newspaper advisor high school, 600. Yearbook advisor high school, 600.
I would only ask to make the.
Hold on, let's see if we have a second.
Yes, ma'am, I apologize.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion as read, Ms. Ryan, and a second, 600. Okay, now we at least all know what we're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's move from that position of that.
I would only say on color guard, if we could leave that the same until we do more due diligence in looking into exactly what we were talking about there in terms of fine arts. I don't want to say something here and not be clarified later before we have it removed from the comp plan. So if we could just leave it the way it is without any increases, And then we'll go back to determine whether or not we need to come back to the board on that or not. And
Okay.
then all of the unified, we're just going to go with your recommendation here. And you're saying, were these in the TASB recommendation?
TASB only looked at stipends you already had.
Got it. But you
So-
did look into these.
Correct, and this is actually the low side of average. It's
Understood.
very much, and I'll send that over to you, and all the board got that, but this is the low side. The average is actually higher than this across the districts that have
It's
unified right now.
definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Correct.
Well,
And again, things can always be
I
adjusted.
have a comment. Ms.
Yes.
Ryan, you opened up this discussion with a persuasive argument, and then you continue to add more to it. I missed the good governance, so I don't know if we decided, but clearly you're over your 5 minutes, your 8 minutes, or whatever we said. I mean, you're like way over. And so you just need to be cognizant of that, because this is not your meeting. So what I want to say about the stipends is I agree with Ms. Stanford in terms of putting the documentation back to administration. I'm not really crazy about Monica Ryan doing a whole report and giving it to us. There's not even a total, so we have no idea what the collective totals are.
It's right on there.
Is it the bottom? Okay, so I missed it.
Flip through the page.
360.
All right. So secondly, if there's discrepancies that were pointed out from what that needs to be ironed out, I'm not in agreement with doing anything with stipends right now. I thought we had consensus to just move forward because we are in a budget issue, and to kind of work throughout the year to ensure that we do and take some recommendations from TASB. It was noted earlier, these stipends will be competitive for 3 to 5 years, and that's good. The only ones that I'll be eventually bringing forward would be the bilingual stipend and the special ed stipends, but that's not in this thing. But that's because it impacts kids directly in the classroom. If we're going to allocate resources, like you say, we have to spend money, and I agree, I've been saying it all day long, we have to play offense too. I'd rather it be put somewhere else, not in stipends right now. And what I mean by that is summer school programming, more after-school programming, things like that that I know students can utilize to be engaged. But this expense will take from that, especially since we've already cut days from principals, and we're doing things and we're adding. Right now, this is probably the time we have to be most cautious. That's why there's not a recommendation to give teacher raises another 6%. We're at a point where we have to pause. And so I don't know why you brought it back to us this way, but I certainly would be open at a minimum to a half 10 if it involves retention. We don't know. The administration should survey everyone on this list to see what their situation is with stipends. But we need to be very, very cautious. And again, I'm happy with the more analysis to it because we have time. It's not urgent. I think everyone who is going to come back is already coming back. The stipend should have been a discussion that we would have had back in March, not June 24th.
Just to kind of respond to Mr. Macias, you do have to spend money to keep your teachers here. Increasing stipends for teachers and making sure that we continue to have these programs is what's going to keep students in school, because those students need something to come to school for. We already discussed that our meets and approaches, those kind of students are not going to be getting the same amount of electives that your masters and meets, sorry, I keep saying the wrong one. Having these clubs, having these stipends for these teachers, these incentives to have these teachers stay after school and spend their time to engage these kids that may not get those electives for that engagement, that's money well spent. We're making sure that our students are being taken care of by taking care of our teachers. And I will always vote to take care of our teachers, because in the end, that is all school is your teachers and your students. That's what you need. And you want to support those students. So supporting students by increasing these stipends and seeing if we can get these programs up and running to make sure that all of these students are engaged, absolutely. That is something we should be looking at, and that is absolutely something we should be considering to pay our teachers to get them to engage our students. I'm not seeing why there's a
Well, you haven't been here for 15 years, and I've supported teachers for 15 years. So don't imply that I don't, because I'm not supporting this.
I'm not implying that you're not.
I think you inferred. But let me just say this. Those resources can be used to partner with a nonprofit that can come in and do the work after school with our kids, if you're talking about extra engagement. Our teachers are tired. Some of them don't want to have to do more. And if, I would argue too, if you really think teachers are leaving because we didn't pay a stipend right now, the evidence will be in the attrition. But we don't have that.
I'm not saying that teachers are leaving. I'm saying that we need to offer more programs for our students. And if increasing these stipends could possibly incentivize some more teachers to go into these programs, then I don't see an issue with that.
And I'm not saying it couldn't, but I'm saying if we're going to spend money, nonprofit collaboration would be better.
Yeah,
And that's what we
the
spend
power of
money.
the agenda. Again, if you put something on the agenda for action, but I haven't seen an action item for a nonprofit partnership with a certain person. So I definitely encourage people to, if you have other ideas, we talk a lot on the board, but really things come down to action. And at some point, you just have to action things and put things on the agenda, and then we see what is going to happen.
Well, my point for not doing that is because we are in the situation that we're in. I will be making recommendations to spend money. It won't be on this, and I'm clearly aware of what I can put on the agenda.
Awesome.
So bottom line is, this is just not, I think, it's something we should pause and wait before we do something on this.
And I would like to withdraw my motion and remake it based on what you just said. I would like to withdraw the motion I had on the table and move that we change stipends, as I have already stated in the previous motion, with the change to leave color guard flag corps sponsor on there at a dollar amount of, please give me, because we didn't ask you for the dollar amount, because we thought that
For
one was
color
coming
guard?
off. Color
I
guard.
think it was 1,500.
1,500 was the TASB recommendation?
No,
Okay.
that's what they're
No.
currently at.
Currently,
Do you have down what the TASB number was? I wasn't sure if it was different than what I had. No, it's okay. Okay, that's what I had was 4,000. Okay, I wasn't sure if there was a change. So the motion is approve the stipend changes to the compensation plan as I previously stated, with adding color guard flag corps back on.
It was zero.
Oh, it's zero for that one. Well, then,
That's why I said, leave it at 1,500. Let's go back and find out. And then if there's something there that we may have missed, we
Okay.
just didn't want to take it off right now.
so as
And then-
previously stated, but no change to
That's it.
the color guard pending more information from district.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now we have a new motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, there we go. Now at least we're all back to knowing what we're talking about. So we have a motion from Ms. Ryan, a second from Ms. Potteet. Further discussion on the new motion.
No discussion. I do want to say something. I understand that the board is going back and forth on some of the concerns, especially with the stipends. One of the statements that was made was that it's all about the students and the teachers. I just want to be clear. There's so many people on that campus doing so much for the success of the students in the district that, and I know there was no harm meant in the statement. I know that. I know that. I'm just saying, for the people that are listening that heard that, I just want to say to the nurses, the administrators, the bus drivers, the custodians, everyone else who makes the wheels work, we appreciate everyone equally across the board, and thank you for all that you do.
And just to respond to that, absolutely, I meant no ill will. Obviously, everybody in that school is important, but getting those students in the seat is our number one goal.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's what we've seen in the newspaper from every school board and every superintendent who's been speaking in our area. It's just about having that priority being on classrooms. And that's why you see so many right-sizing decisions happening all around us that have to do with non-classroom things. And it's not because everyone doesn't love and appreciate the non-classroom teachers. It's just everybody understands that when you're trying to move the needle on academics, that is the place that moves the needle the most. And so it is, again, it's challenging times for everybody right now in education. So any other discussion before we move to a vote on the motion on the table?
Yes, ma'am. So just one point of clarity. And historically, Ms. Ryan, you've been really critical about the pay adjustments for non-teachers. You said that we adjusted them, and you put all over Facebook that we're overpaying admin. And so we've made those adjustments again because I've always stated all employees are valuable. And so you're using that argument now that we need to do this because all employees are valuable, and they are. But where we were when we did that adjustment to where we are now is a very different place. And so your recommendations are just counter to what we had already concluded a month ago. And so I would just caution, if this thing passes, that your criticism of previous action just go away, because you're basically doing exactly what you criticized before, and that's important to note.
And remember, the previous board was not sitting, or the stipend discussion was for the previous board, and we have 3 new members. So pending other discussion,
I move that we table this.
do we have a second on the table? Seeing no.
Until when?
Oh, yes.
Until
table- yeah, I'm
administration
sorry.
can bring back the information, the adjustments,
Which information?
the adjustments. I want this report from
Okay, so there's
administration.
no
To be
discussion of it.
accurate.
You have to state when you want it brought back and with what are we missing?
Whenever they can bring it back. I don't want to put a timeline. Whenever
Which
they bring it up.
information are you missing? You have the TASB audit.
Sorry?
What information are you missing? There has to be a reason to table because you don't have some piece of
Because there was some
information.
adjustments made, and I'd like to have this report adjusted and conducted by administration. And then that way it's real clear.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion to table because what Ms. Davis provided wasn't clear enough to Mr. Macias? Do we have a second on that?
I will second that, just so that we have the right numbers, because we don't even have the right total now. I would like a complete and full report so that we can vote on a complete, accurate report.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So, and there's no discussion allowed of a table per Robert's rules. I had to learn that last time. More lessons on Robert's rules. So if you, just to clear for the new people who don't, the motion to table would take this off the, we wouldn't be able to vote on the motion, and it would have to come back at another time whenever information was produced. And then a no vote we will go back to the motion and then vote on the motion. So we'll proceed to vote on the motion to table.
Like table set it aside, right?
This is the motion to table, meaning we're not going to vote on it today.
So we get corrected numbers.
Okay, we have 4 people motioning to table, so it is tabled. Oops. No. Oh, sorry, no, I don't mean that. I didn't mean that like no. So, okay, we are,
And
Just
so
to kind of-
admin oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
just to kind of explain just a tiny bit, I am still 100% behind supporting these stipends because the teachers need to be paid. I'm okay with coming back with the information.
We'll
I'm
turn it around as
always-
quickly as possible.
I'm always good with more information and solid numbers. So this is not me going, no, I'm not supporting it. This is just, I'm okay with getting the solid numbers so that everybody is incredibly clear on exactly what we're voting for.
And I agree with that.
And I'm going to talk to employees about these stipends. So I want more clarity from our employees, because as I mentioned earlier, we're not even surveying them to see if it makes an impact. This gives me time to do that, too.
oh, and I definitely recommend the board members all check their email, because if some of you have not seen the emails that have been coming in on this, then I recommend you check your Judson email, because we have gotten extensive amount, and I'll forward over to you any
Thank
of
you.
the supporting documents.
I'll do my
In case they
research.
didn't get over to you, so. Okay, we are moving on to, hold on. 5D Discussion and possible action to retain current CTE pathways through the 25-26 school year. This was raised, I put this on the agenda because this was raised by a number of both parents and staff members, that there were certain career pathways that were advertised in our high school catalog, offered to students, and then were, I guess, some decision to eliminate them as pathways at those high schools, which we are working to increase our CCMR numbers and increase our pathways. So I'm not sure why those were eliminated, other than some, I know there are some potential lower enrollments in some of them, but as we've discussed, funneling kids into the pathways. And in the past, we have off-ramped programs, right? Like when we off-ramped International Baccalaureate, it was an off-ramping process type thing. So to hear that a few of them were just cut outright, would you mind going over which ones are on the list to potentially be cut, I guess?
Yes, ma'am. If I can have Dr. Steele come up to the microphone, I'd appreciate it. But in speaking with her, there were only a few that were, in your terms, off-ramped. But basically, with any course across the district, especially at the high school level, it comes down to student selection. And if the students don't opt to be in that particular class, then the class typically doesn't make. And then because we can't, to your point that you were trying to make earlier with the RTI students, you don't want 2 or 3 students sitting around in a class with a full FTE. So at the high school level, I think there were only a few. If you could speak to what they were, and then how many students then elected the class, and then what happened with the number of students that elected, and are they still in the CTE pathway, or did we just take away all options for those students?
Excuse me, we did provide the board with a detailed document that outlines what we're looking at. I would like to give just a very brief background of CTE for our new board members, in the sense of, prior to this year, we were on that 5x5 schedule, which allowed a student to earn 40 credits during the course of their 4 years. So we had a huge increase during that time in Judson of students selecting CTE, because you took 4 courses each school year, and then you had 6 electives. So CTE showed a burst in growth in all our pathways. Moving to the 7-period day, we did notice a decline. And just to reference that growth, I know some of the board members were at the Veterans High School CTE award ceremony, and we noticed in our CTE row, we would see a student collect 3 completion certifications because he was able to complete 3 programs of study. So you would see that a lot, particularly in the one program that we are looking at retiring, or CTE calls it sunsetting, and that is only the computer science pathway at Veterans Memorial High School. We still have the IT computer science at Wagner High School. So the program still exists in the district. It's just the enrollment with the computer science and the cybersecurity, we found there was a number of cross enrollments. So for example, this past year, the enrollment in our computer science courses, and a program of study has a level 1 that might be common to 2 courses, which is our principles of IT, that goes to computer science and to cybersecurity. And then in our computer science program, students would take either Computer Science 1 or AP Computer Science Principles. They would take AP Computer Science Math, and then their final course was AP Computer Science 3. And if you have my handout, you see a little practicum of Infotech Computer Science that had 3 students. That was layered with another course, and that's because we had seniors who were finishing out a program this year. So our total course enrollment in just those computer science courses was 49 for this current school year. But we had enough principals of IT and computer or cybersecurity to maintain 2 full-time teachers. This year, we only have 27 course requests for a total of 4 classes. So on my handout, you'll see there are 9 students for Computer Science 1, 8 for Computer Science Math, 2 for Principals, and 8 for Computer Science 3, which was a total of 27 students. I had nothing else for that student to teach because the cybersecurity course, which has 45 course requests, there is enough space in that teacher's schedule to absorb the 2 intro classes as well. We did a lot of diligent background research. Of the 43 requests for incoming students in that Principles of IT, that feeds both cybersecurity and computer science. 33 were cybersecurity, and only 10 were computer science. So even if we manage to keep the program another year in some way, shape, or form at Veterans, only 10 incoming freshmen is not enough to support an entire program of study. To go back to the 27 students that were enrolled in those computer science courses, 6 out of the 9 students were not program of study. They were not following a program. They were taking an AP course or a computer science course for an elective. Of those 9, 6 students chose other CTE electives. So they'll still be in CTE, just not in computer science. 7 of the computer science students were also cybersecurity kids, and they chose to retain cybersecurity. That was their focus.
Which means that they too are also, they
will
are
be
in that
completers, they have
Yes.
certifications. 4 students are already IT completers with certifications, so they were taking additional courses.
So that means they already have the CCMOs.
Yes. 4 students selected other CTE programs. These are looking at our 10th graders. And 3 students did not currently, who were in computer science, who were in a program of study, have not currently selected another course. So a total loss to CTE, if we have to sunset this program, would be 6 students. Now, we did not have a teacher retire. We did not RIF a teacher. We have a vacancy at Cibolo Creek Middle School. So this teacher has a position in the district. At the bottom, I kind of went through the fiscal impact. The average teacher salary is $75,000. The revenue from the computer science course enrollment of the 27 students is $34,742. And just so you know, lower level courses generate less money, upper level courses generate others. And we have a finance document from CTAT, which is our state organization, that allows you to estimate. If we kept the teacher at Veterans, and I don't recommend stacking the 4 computer science courses because they are very different skills and curriculums. So we would have a replacement teacher at Cibolo Creek for $75,000. We would have our computer science teacher at Veterans for $75,000. Now, I subtracted 34 and change for the money we would get from the state. So that equals $40,258. That's our Veterans teacher salary, plus the $75,000 to hire an additional teacher to cover tech apps at Cibolo Creek. That would be $115,258 to maintain the program. If we do sunset the program, and the counselors and my CTE program facilitator did work with the students in this program. The total cost savings to the district would be $40,258. This decision was not made lightly. And I also included a list of all of the current enrollments. We don't just look at numbers, we also look at, do we have a body that can support it? And case in point, the legal studies program at Veterans has had some struggles the last couple of years, but I have enough law enforcement teachers who I can fill their schedule with other program courses that we're going to maintain, push, and recruit that program. And we have 13 transfer students who are going into law enforcement at Veterans this freshman year coming up, specifically for legal studies. It's not a lot, but it's a start. And so we are hoping, because we have a new teacher in place there, to really see that program take off. It was also a program at Veterans, and I was very, very hesitant to cut 2 programs from a campus. And since we can continue to offer computer science at Wagner, the program will still be alive in our district. Are there any other questions? Any questions?
I'm not, the math on the savings isn't quite right, because no matter what, we're paying a salary at Cibolo Creek to someone. So really, the cost of this is only $40,000, because essentially we would have a teacher with less than a full caseload of students, similar to choir at Kirby, and a number of other, we have a number of other low enrollment FTE things. So this would be $40,000 to continue to sustain and make attempts to grow this program.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt you, ma'am. Actually, the teacher who's currently teaching this program would fill the spot, so there's no cost to Cibolo Creek.
Well, there is, because we're paying his salary over there.
Okay,
So-
but
Yeah.
But
his
then we're not
I'm
salary,
saying it's
paying it.
only an extra we're talking about one FTE.
Which is 75,000.
Correct, yes, but we get to keep, if that person keeps teaching what they're teaching at Veterans and that stays alive, we'll get CT multiplier money of
Well, that-
$37,742.
that is included. The teacher's salary is figured at $75,000. The amount of money we would receive from the state is $34,742, which leaves us the $40,258. So we would spend that plus the $75,000.
I'm saying we're already spending the $75,000, so you know what I mean, right? It's one FTE, it's not 2 FTEs.
No,
But what
ma'am.
we're saying is if it turns into the FTE at the new place if we have to put someone new in it. But if we take him and put in it, we budgeted for him, so
Correct.
then we
We'll
take
cut
away the
one
budget
FTE
for the
off
new,
of-
right?
Of Veterans,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Yes, so that's, again, that's a $40,000 savings. And we would lose the CT multiplier money. That pays half of that salary already. And this is kind of why I asked the question at the last budget workshop, because we are getting an extra $6 million from the state for CTE that our district is choosing not to use for CTE. That's because we're only required to spend 55%. We get $13 million for CTE, but our district is only spending $7 million of that on our CTE programs. We're using the other $6 million to supplant other costs in the district. So,
But those are allowable.
and I'm not saying it's not, I'm not saying you're not allowed to do that.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, you're not allowed to, but that's a choice that we could continue to spend the CTE money, more of it on our CTE programs or not.
Well,
And
not if it, what is it paying for? You said that it's being allocated somewhere else, so.
they've just put the money back into general fund to pay our other expenses type thing. So,
We can have the CFO come up. and-
again, we're,
Go ahead.
yes.
Larry, you want to come up and explain how we use funds, categorical or otherwise, that we have the option to use in other capacities like CTE? And then in terms of the CTE funds, are we using the bulk of that for CTE purposes?
Yes, especially like the Perkins grant, it all goes to Perkins. The categorical funds that you were talking about, they used to have that 55% percentage. It's still all local funds, just 55% of that allocation had to be forwarded straight for that program. But now that 55% has went away, so that frees
And
up
then 45% can be used for other purposes.
for administrative purposes for district use. Yes, sir.
Do we-
Correct. We receive it for the purposes of CT, though. We're not required to use it for that, but it is coded as CT money from the state that we get by having students in the CTE program.
That's correct.
Because we get a multiplier and funds for every kid that we have enrolled in courses and completers and EcoDisc completers. There's a lot of money we get through these programs. CTE is used by a lot of school districts as a revenue generating thing, right? The more kids you have in CTE, you literally, these CTE programs, if you grow them the right way, pay for themselves. All those teacher salaries end up getting paid from simply having the student in the course, enough students in the course.
Well, and more. One of the reasons they come back with the additional funds that can be used in other ways is because there are associated costs that don't really come out of CTE funds. Transportation, I don't know, just the use of the building, just other stuff that we do CTE-wise that we don't, you're able to now use those funds to pay for in different ways, correct? Isn't that the whole
Yeah.
concept behind the
Those are the indirect
55-45 split?
Yes,
So-
because there is indirect costs that we use.
Now, to your point, though, and I didn't mean to mess up your train of thought. I do want to say this, though, Ms. Ryan. What we've done is we've just looked at the numbers to determine. So if we're saying that we want to go in this way because the money's there, to use it in a different capacity to allow for, essentially, after she talked about moving the students around, 6 students to be in a class with an FTE, that's just not what we've done in the past in terms of student population and what makes and what doesn't.
Correct, and then there's also the principal's IT. So my major concerns is, what have we done to grow the program and recruit the 8th graders into this program? Because computer science is a Department of Labor, fast growth job market, right? We have very limited STEM offerings up at Veterans Memorial. I've been very clear about that, right? It's a very high demand STEM area. More kids apply for JSTEM out of there than any other region, the veterans feeder pattern. So if we have demand for STEM, and it's a high growth, high demand industry where other industries are declining, that pays, $155,000. We also have a feeder school. UTSA's computer science program is blowing up over there, and with some of the programs we have to get kids into computer science. Additionally, a number of these classes are multiple credit things. They count as a math class. They also count as a foreign language. You can take 2 of these classes and get your 2 years of foreign language, so you do not, for kids who are not interested in Spanish, because we don't offer French and German. So we're now talking about eliminating classes that can meet math or foreign language requirements. And we have not just cut programs like this that students are currently in without finding some sort of sunsetting that allows students to finish out this program and opportunities to grow it more. That giving up on this program just to save $40,000 instead of giving it a year to attempt to grow this program back up now that we see we didn't market it enough, and sending the message that we're going to decrease CTE pathways, decrease STEM offerings up in one of our feeder patterns, I don't think sends the right message. This is an area for our objectives that we're trying to increase our CCMR and increase our revenue and increase these types of things, that a more deliberate way of doing this, if we need to realign our CTE programs, that needs to be a lot more deliberate and precision and out to everywhere. And if there are creative staffing solutions, like we just talked about a bunch of split people, right? So maybe that split at Veterans and Cibolo Creek are exactly 8 minutes away from each other, because I live by both of them, right? So maybe there are some split options. What else are those teachers certified in that they can go teach something else and go pull certificates instead of, because we have kids about to be seniors in this program, right? Ready to complete their program. So if we need to sunset over the years as kids attrit out of the program, but just cutting programs like this, and I'm not sure, are there any other ones that we have cut from any other schools? This is the one that I heard of that bubbled up from a number of people, but I'm not sure if there have been other changes to CT.
I guess my question then, Dr. Steele, would be, out of the 3 or 6 students that you said that you identified, how many are seniors? And were they going to complete a pathway in this?
I
or
believe there are 3 seniors who would have completed a pathway.
Are they able to complete a pathway in another?
If they
way?
chose cybersecurity, because many of the courses cross between cyber and computer science, both of the AP courses count for both programs. Both of the entry-level course counts for both programs.
And
So,
we have the
yes.
space available in cybersecurity.
Yes, we do have space available in cybersecurity, and like I said, some of them chose to take the cybersecurity path or course that would complete their program of study.
It's just making kids switch over in the middle. We offered a program, we told them it was gonna be available, and then we're making 4 of them choose another program, 3 of them haven't figured out what they're gonna do, they're ready to complete, because Mrs. Potito will tell you, cybersecurity and computer science are not the right thing. Sorry, she has a cybersecurity husband. So she knows a lot about computer stuff, and I have siblings, we talked about this weekend at the beach, about who are both computer scientists. And so these are, it feels like it's pulling the rug out without much notice versus putting in a solid effort to try to expand our CTE offerings.
Can I make just 3 quick comments?
Yes, ma'am.
One, we did more recruiting this year than we have ever done, with the program facilitators actually meeting with 8th graders at all 5 middle schools in individual classes, not in computer groups, but either one class or 2 classes together. I do have a concern about only 10 freshmen moving up, so that's a discussion we'll have about, are we going to just move out our upper ones? My biggest concern, however, is right now, through attrition, our numbers in CTE are dropping, and they're going to drop another year. The seniors this year had 30 credits going into senior year
And you're saying that's because of the schedule?
because of the
The
change in
7
schedule.
period versus the 5.
The seniors next year, we're only on the 5x5 for 2 years. So they've been on the 7-period day this year, and a lot of them have made choices not to move forward in band or theater or CTE because they had to choose. I have a position for the teacher this year. Should we have to sunset the program because we don't see growth, I do not anticipate having a vacancy in my programs. And I believe this person is only certified in the CTE areas. So right now, I have a home for my teacher and a very small program. And again, I don't want to do it. I believe the idea of possibly looking at a split for the 2 upper-level courses is a possibility.
Understood. Could we look
So-
into that?
Yes, we
And then-
will look into that.
Also, we were talking about earlier, maybe this may cultivate an interest in bringing back, because just because it didn't make this time doesn't mean that we're killing the program throughout. If we have enough students that now elect to go into that, we can bring it back, right? When we sunsetted IB and some of the other ones, we just cut off registration completely for that particular
Yes,
program.
no, we did not cut registration. We waited until all the course requests were in. I'm also going to caution you, because these are 4 distinct courses, and we're looking at 27 course requests. That does not mean they're scheduled into the program. So should
Right,
an
just
A-
because they took a class in that pathway does not mean that they're trying to be in that pathway program.
No, what I'm saying is, we haven't gotten the student schedule.
Got it.
They haven't done the matrix. And having done master schedules, I know it's a very delicate thing, especially for juniors and seniors, where band goes and theater goes and AP computer science math goes. So I just want people to be aware that this number could drop from 27 to 15 across 4 classes.
Of the ones who said that they were going to do it anyway.
These are kids who just requested it.
Got it.
This is what I want to take.
Understood.
So, just to be clear.
Scheduled it.
Right. That's what she said.
I guess instead of a motion, can we Dr. Fields, will you be willing to go back and relook at possible split options to try and keep this alive for a few of the kids within reason? And just dig into this a little bit more to see if there's a way to, and what else can be done.
I would say yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I just want to be.
And follow back up.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to be
Okay.
clear, though. I want to be clear that if we, to Dr. Steele's point, we've moved the individual over to Cibolo Creek. We are more than willing to look into, and I guess I'm looking at Dr. Toppin now, to the elections that we have over at Veterans Memorial. But if we find that in the end, through these elections, there's only 6 or 7 kids that we're talking about being in the class, I don't know if we're going to put the person in, because we've already decided that we have a full class load over at Cibolo Creek with the elections that were made. So we'd either have to staff the classes or send kids in other directions. I don't want to give the impression that we're going to look into it and we're going to do it, and then we only have 6 kids in a class, but we have kids over at Cibolo Creek being told, no, you can't take it, because we're having the person go back for the 6. But if we can get over 10, then we will see if we can make this work.
Yeah, or a double stack, if, talking to the teacher to see if there's a double stack, see if the teacher has other certificates, if you can, I would love if you would come back saying.
Will do.
We have now explored absolutely every possible scenario.
Understood.
And not saying y'all didn't do your due diligence, it's not what I'm saying. Dr. Steele knows my love of CTE runs so deep, right? So I am gonna fight for these programs tooth and nail every single time. And what her and Devin and CCMR do, because remember, 40% of our ratings as a district are coming from CCMR. We focus a lot on STAR scores, but 40% of that is coming from CCMR. So I have to focus just as hard on that as I do on STAR and academic, math and reading too, because that is going to impact and graduation rates too. So that's why I fight so hard on that. So I'm willing to let this go if you can follow up with me and just, I want to feel like I've exhausted every
We
option.
will look into it.
On behalf of these kids and these parents and everything else.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Any other comments? I'll open it.
I do.
I'm not going to make a motion, but if we have comments.
Yeah, just anytime I hear a community member, or in this case, a board member, mention that, we need STEM up on the northern end of the district, that there's a market and all that kind of stuff. I've been following Judson for longer than I've been on this board, and before I was elected, the board made a conscious decision to put programs like STEM in areas where the students are economically disadvantaged. And so I will continue to support that, because that's where we see the greatest need. So I just want to make sure we have new board members. I want them to understand this, that we need to put programs where the need is greatest, not where the desire to go into a program is greatest.
Well, it's about expanding, right? Like Wagner has amazing. They got T-STEM, they got drone, they got engineering, we got P-Tech going on. We are always expanding, and expanding that across the entire district, right? It's not about moving something from one end of the district to the other, right? We want those opportunities available to all of our students,
And they are
regardless of where they live.
available to all of our
And there's
students.
amazing STEM at Wagner.
And they're available to students all throughout the district.
Oh, correct. Just
So they are
geography is
available.
not our friend from one end to the other. A 26-mile drive down to Wagner is for many families and students driving cars, right? You're not going to have a 16-year-old driving or taking the bus necessarily down to Wagner. It's just challenging for some families because of geography of the district.
Well, and my point, and Ms. Ryan, you're really good about interrupting my points.
Yeah, you're good.
So, again, the idea is that we focus, and again, for my new board members, we focus on continuing to deliver services to communities that need those services. And so I just want to be clear, because people will hear this dialogue and start thinking, well, this is why. It's been long decided upon. But obviously, you can bring recommendations forward. Thank you.
And I don't want messaging to the veterans feeder pattern that this board has already decided we're only going to provide things to the other 2 feeder patterns. I think most of us want to provide everything to all of our students. So, all right, any
I have
other
a comment.
discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Canoy.
Dr. Steele, I'd like to thank you. You've done an amazing job looking at all of our CTE programs and evaluating success and failure and need to grow and need to change and need to delete. And I appreciate all your hard work and the people that worked with you to do this. Thank you.
Dr. Fields, Ms. Ryan, I have to go to work.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we are almost done then. So we have discussion item reports, the 2026 ESSA consolidated grant, Perkins grant, special education consolidated grants. The district has to notify us that they're applying for those grants. Those were in the board book. There's no action required
all
by
this
us.
is. Yes,
They
ma'am.
just have to notify us that we're going back out and these are the grants we apply for every year. Any questions on any of those grants? No? And then we have
First reading.
6B is the first reading, so for the new board members, when there's changes to laws, TASB writes up the draft policy letters and sends them out in batches in groups. So we have policy update 125, which has the TASB recommended requirements on the new policy letters. We do a first reading of those, so it gives you a chance to read them, ask questions, and then we bring them back at the next meeting, and then we discuss and vote to approve those. And then there is one other one that FM local, there was a requirement regarding homeschool students and athletics, and school boards were asked to pass policy one way or another
Correct.
on whether they were going to let homeschool students participate in their high school sports teams, essentially.
Correct.
So there is a draft in there to not allow, based on the recommendations from the athletics departments, to not allow homeschool kids to come participate in our athletics. So any questions on those? We won't vote on those tonight. Those will be back at the next meeting for a vote. Any questions on any of those policy letters
No, I have something following that, though.
following the policy letters? We are at the end of the
I know.
agenda, ma'am.
Well, no, it's part of this agenda from earlier, so I didn't know where to fit it in, but it was so late last night when we voted on everything, and I've had beginning phone calls on the PK3 program.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
We've already voted, so we
I
would have
know.
to add that back to the agenda.
well, we've brought it back before in the middle of a agenda, but I did have some questions, and that's if we had any consideration of sunsetting the program, and if we have any idea, I want to clarify the savings that we're looking at, and if we have any idea of how many students we might lose due to closing the program.
I
Because
can't-
I know sometimes we lose siblings along with the kids.
Well, I think we've already voted on the program, so
Right.
if you are asking for a reconsideration of that vote and have additional information presented so we reconsider, there would have to be a yes and a vote note that agrees and puts it on a future agenda, is what our good governance handbook says. So, because you want to reconsider, I'm hearing.
I wanna get a
You want to
little more-
consider a reconsideration. Okay, so then you can submit an agenda item if you find, well, we did have one person vote no, and one person vote, at least more than one. So the yes and the no can submit that for the next agenda.
Do you want me to just give clarification on our, I mean, we don't have to consider, but I don't mind answering.
Yeah, we don't
Okay,
have to,
we wanna
if we
quickly-
could get some clarification,
The
then I can
clarification-
decide if I
The
want to bring it back.
clarification is 360 students. Out of the 360 students, 29 of them were Bright Beginnings, which were our employees. Out of the 29, which were Bright Beginnings, 8 of them did not qualify. I'm sorry, 8 of them did qualify.
Yes, sir, did
And the
qualify.
other 21 did not qualify.
Correct. The other remaining 21 paid the full tuition.
Correct. And then, we have about 18 FTEs and paras, I guess, that were involved in the program. So that was going to be the savings of it. I would tell you, going forward, we were going to sit today and discuss as a cabinet on how we were going to communicate that out and get it out as quickly as possible. As a parent, when my kids were little, where they were going to go was always a hot topic in the house, so I
Yeah.
want to get that information out to those. Now, that's based on the individuals who are enrolled in the program this current year. What's going to come up for next year, we usually don't find out about until next year shows up.
Because all those 29 kids are now pre-K 4 kids. They're
Correct.
not pre-K 3 anymore. So
Exactly.
it doesn't, none of those 29 specifically are affected. It would be any incomings
And
would
the
be
remainder of the 360 would probably then roll up into pre-K 4, so.
And we don't know how many are coming down the pike for
Well, to
the,
your point, when you were saying how many would we lose because of the pre-K 3 and sibling, I
siblings,
have no
yeah, we
idea.
know- yeah.
Have no idea. Because when you enroll in the pre-K 3, we don't typically say, do you have a 2-year-old brother or sister at the house? So
yeah.
we'd have to wait and see what that's going to look like. But we have made the decision to do that. So today, we need to sit down as a cabinet and find out the best way to communicate that, get with our communications department, and get that going out as quickly as possible.
And did we
If
have a
that-
dollar figure on the savings, just real quick?
In terms of the savings, if you were to look at the 18 FTEs, 18 divide times 75,000, and then if you took another 18 and put it at about 35,000 or 40,000 for the paraprofessionals, that should give you your total. Did anybody do
I
that
didn't
one?
take.
The teachers are 1,350,000. If we took about the same amount of paraprofessionals,
Divide that by
at
half.
about
About
35,
40,000.
you get about 630.
I'm sorry.
630,000. 630,000, so those
Right at the
together be
2 million
about,
mark?
all
Right
right,
at
close
the
to the 2
2
million.
Yes.
Yeah, just over 2 million.
I hope that helped to clarify.
That does, because now I can look to see if I do want to
Do
Understood.
anything with it.
bring it back
Yes,
or
ma'am.
not. Thank you.
Dr.
Okay.
Fields, I have a little bit of a concern.
Yes, ma'am.
So just like layers down, other than notifying families, we also need to notify principals. We need to stop registration. Principals need to rebuild their master schedule. We need to let teachers know who left in May thinking they're teaching pre-K 3, that now you'll be teaching some, which they're certified. Pre-K teachers have to be fully certified. So there is a little sense of urgency there. It is a very fast turnaround, so just kind of as you're contemplating, please keep all those pieces in mind.
We're keeping the teachers, right? We're just moving them somewhere else.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for your patience on a 2-day meeting and everything else. There be no further business. This meeting is adjourned at 1:28 PM.